Here's Donald Trump himself talking about the acquisition of Gaza. We'll be talking about that after this.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. If we can get a beautiful area to resettle people permanently in nice homes and where they can be happy and not be shot, not be killed, not be knifed to death like what's happening in Gaza. Why would they want to return? The place has been hell.
Trump is the most, let's say, unpredictable and exciting political figure, if you can divorce your own political perspectives from it, perhaps since the great leaders of the 20th century and all that might be packed into some of those extraordinary leaders. But he still has the capacity to surprise. I don't think any of us expected him to turn up in Israel next to Netanyahu saying America are going to take over Gaza. By what authority can Trump make that claim? And what does this do, Neil, to the already pretty entrenched divisions between the left and right? The left will claim that this is an example of the megalomaniacal Trump that they always feared. And it's difficult really to see how this was part of his America First campaign agenda. Neil, how are you dealing with this?
I looked on at Trump listened to Trump saying these things alongside Netanyahu. And I'll be honest with you, I don't understand precisely what he could possibly have been saying. Really. I mean, I listened to the words more than once, but I still don't understand. What does he mean? And was he deliberately using language in such a way that it left it dubious? I mean, as you alluded to, I mean, by what authority could America take Gaza? Take Gaza from whom and under what legislation or under what right? How is that possible? Is that what he meant? I don't know. And obviously, you go back a year and more ago, and his son-in-law was talking about beachfront property in Gaza and it being an enormous investment opportunity and all of the rest of it. And I listened to that at the time and thought, did anybody know that he was going to say that there? And then you watch Trump in that press conference and you think, did anybody know that he was going to say that there? And Benjamin Netanyahu didn't seem to understand, judging by his body language. It didn't seem as though he had been pre-warned about what Trump was saying. He didn't understand either. So there's just this whole bubble of uncertainty hanging all over it, because in the face of it, it sounds like it would be, to any rational person, it would be completely illegal and impossible for the USA to take Gaza, level it and redevelop it and decide who was going to live there, which is what he certainly seemed to be saying. And then that bit in the second clip, where he says Gaza's been such a terrible place, why would anybody want to go back to it? So that's open brackets. The people who previously lived there are not going back there, whether they want to or not. But he seemed to be implying that whoever was going to live in the redeveloped Gaza was not going to be the people who have spent 7 decades and lifetimes of hurt and pain trying to hold on to something. So, in short, I look on at it and I don't know how to interpret what Donald Trump said there. It seemed impossible.
I suppose many of us were wondering what a newly emboldened 2025 version of Donald Trump might look like, with him confirmation pending, surrounded by legitimizing and, in my view, brilliant figures, in particular like Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard. I feel like my general opinion of Trump changed over the years as to, this dude is a wrecking ball when it comes to globalist power. And even though he is a nationalist and a populist, people love him because he's kind of funny and affable, and he's an old school entrepreneurial tycoonish figure that regards everything as a kind of a deal opportunity. Kind of from that perspective, there are aspects of this rhetoric, at least, that aren't surprising. But when it comes to the most contentious historical issue that encompasses ideas like imperialism, colonialism, and spiritual legitimacy of the rights to claim land, claims that could, of course, be made by Aboriginal Australians or Irish people to the British, or Indian people to the British, or Native Americans to currently settled residents of the United States of America, it's a massive and enormous question. Lara Logan, I think that you're generally pretty supportive of Donald Trump. How do you reconcile your broad support for Trump with this sort of extraordinary piece of geopolitical politicking?
Well, I also did a double take. You know, it came out of left field. I wasn't expecting it, and I had to listen to it a couple times. And so different headlines and different people commenting on it. And I had to go to the original video to listen to it just to sort of wrap my head around it. I'm not 100% convinced that Trump meant what he said. I don't think he's making it up. I think that Neil's very astute observation there of Jared Kushner. I remember when he said that about beachfront properties in Gaza, and it also stuck out because, you know, Gaza obviously is, it's just on the one hand, you have this massive destruction. But then on the other hand, I have been to Gaza and I have seen the ginormous Porsche dealerships and all the luxury car dealerships in the very wealthy parts of Gaza, especially especially after Hamas came in. They stole so much from the people, and it helped them to keep the people in poverty, because that was very much a recruiting tool for them. So, and not to say there weren't other issues. It's just something that's not often remarked on or not often known because people don't generally go to Gaza and see these things for themselves. But I'm always, this is one of those situations where I immediately hold and try to figure out, what is this really about? Because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, it sounds simple in one respect. Oh, we're going to, take over Gaza and rebuild it. Well, rebuilding, I've seen that in Afghanistan. I've seen it in Iraq. I've seen it in Syria, South Sudan. I mean, all over the world, right? Rebuilding is hard. And obviously people are very entrenched there. I didn't take that clip of Trump saying, why would anyone want to go back there, as meaning that they're going to bring other people in. Neil, I can see why when you take a clip like that in isolation, it can make you think that. I took it more as, why would these people want to come back to nothing? Like, why would they want to come back to the life that they had? We're going to fundamentally change what's here, and we're going to make it better for them. Like, that was my read and I did listen to a little more of it. So maybe that's why I took that a little differently. But this is what I would say is when Trump said we're going to take the Panama Canal, I don't think he had any intention of taking the Panama Canal. What he wanted was exactly what he got. He got Panama to say, we're not going to play with China anymore. If you're going to threaten us, people have to believe he's serious. Because if they don't believe he's serious, it's not going to work. He's got no negotiating power. He's got no leverage. So I'm sure that I can't be sure, but I imagine that if you sat down with him, he would have a very, reasoned, articulated, substantial argument telling you why he means it. But I'm not really sure that he does.
Free speech is under attack, but Rumble Premium refuses to back down. That's why you should use Rumble Premium. Support content creators like me, and him, and him, and him, and him. I'm going to say and her, but is there one? And her? Oh. That's good. And her. With major advertisers conspiring to pull their dollars, even brands like Dunkin' Donuts turned their back, claiming Rumble had a right-wing culture. We're not here to fit a mold. We're here to defend free expression. To strengthen this mission, we're excited to offer Rumble Premium, a completely ad-free experience with exclusive benefits, grow up, for viewers and creators. It's more than a subscription. It's a stand for free speech. Your voice matters. Join Rumble Premium. For a limited time, you can get $10 off an annual plan using the promo code BRAND. Visit rumble.com/premium/brand and claim your discount today. Together we can turn the tide, whether you join Rumble Premium or simply keep watching. Your support helps keep free speech alive. Go to rumble.com/premium/brand and use the code BRAND to get $10 off.
And in terms of how could they legally do it, Neil, the only way they could legally do it was if the Palestinian Authority, the people, in charge who legally own Gaza, made an agreement with the U.S. And I don't think it's beyond Trump to do. I mean, we don't really know at this point. We don't have a good granular idea of how much legs does Hamas still have in them, and what about Hezbollah and the Iranians? There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that I know about that is not reported, where Iran has taken massive, massive, massive hits to their infrastructure, and people blame everything on the Israelis, even when the Israelis don't actually have the military capability to do what's being done, which tells me that the people who are really doing it are the U.S. So I know that there's a lot going on behind the scenes and that we're not aware of. Of course, there are people within Hamas that are completely ideological and cannot be bought, just like anybody else. But there's also a lot of them that can be bought. There's also a lot of them that have paid a very heavy price at this point, have been brought to their knees. And I don't know what kind of deals are going on behind the scenes. I wouldn't put it past them to make some kind of crazy deal. It seems insane. It does. It seems insane on the surface. There's no question about it. But that's when it doesn't add up. I know I'm missing pieces of information, and they're critical pieces of information.
Sure.
I don't want to be definitive.
I just find it very difficult to contemplate even the possibility in the real world that Trump's sponsors and major donors and Benjamin Netanyahu and the party of which he is the front could entertain the idea that Donald Trump was going to redevelop Gaza and reinstall the incumbent population now into a lovely Gaza, all beautiful. And that was one way in which one might have read what Trump seemed to be saying, but I find that impossible. But I think the other thing to be, when you look back on the history of from 1948, or even further back, you go back to 1917 and the Balfour Declaration, and when you look at it from the distance of time and think that in that instance, Britain invited itself to decide to give away a territory that it didn't own and had no ancestral claim on to someone else without any consultation whatsoever with the incumbent population. And that incumbent population was frightened and forced away from it, from their homes, from their olive groves, from their fruit trees, and all of the rest of it. They were just forced out of it and found themselves disenfranchised and exiled in living memory. And it seems absolutely it's surreal now to watch Donald Trump and representing the United States of America seeming to now take claim ownership of part of that territory, and again decide, without direct reference to the people who've wanted it back, if you like, or demanded to have a better say over it for 70 years, now looking on at Donald Trump as the next person coming in saying, well, I'm just going to tell everyone what's going to happen here. Let me throw
something controversial at you both, okay? Let me throw something controversial at you. Neil, I understand it, and that's why I don't really believe it. I'll be honest with you. I have nothing to base this on, but my gut instinct is he's playing a hand, and this doesn't really have any intention of doing that. I don't know what he intends to do, but I don't think it's that. But on the other side of this, let me ask you both a question. I have been in one war after another, after another, after another. And they never, ever, ever end. And they never get better. And these and people are entrenched in the population, and they use the population, and they exploit the population. And I'm not excusing anyone, right? I'm not saying these people are worse than the US, or that the US is better than Hamas, or I'm not saying that. I'm just saying is we are in a very interesting moment here in modern history where there is someone who's not playing according to the rules that we have seen. And the rules that we have seen, going back to the Balfour Declaration, or whether it's the Durant Line in Afghanistan, or whether it's the separation of Rwanda. And I mean, I'm a product, right, of colonialism and all the rest of it growing up in South Africa. I've seen that all over Africa. I've been to probably 40, 50 countries where I've seen that. So I know exactly what you're talking about. One after another, you can trace modern warfare to decisions that were made by the Arabs, not just the Brits, the Arabs, the Portuguese, the French. I mean, all of them have their legacy of imperialism that has torn tribes and societies and countries and areas apart. All of them have it. And before that, there were also other forces doing that long before the British ever set foot in Arabia. I mean, there were things that were happening with the Ottomans. The Ottomans went into those lands. I mean, so depending on how far back you want to go in history, you can find this cycle repeating itself. And now I'm curious to see if this is actually a moment where we're going to change the rules of the game. And I don't know that that's right. And I'm not saying it's good, And I don't even think it could work. Honestly, I don't think the US could rebuild Gaza. And that's probably one of those clips where someone will play it and show how wrong I was 10 years later. But I just know what's involved in rebuilding. But what I what I am interested to see here is what exactly is at play? Because not every Palestinian supports Hamas. Not every Palestinian wants the genocide of every last living Jew, right? Not every Palestinian wants a return to what they had before. And I don't know I don't know what this means. When it doesn't make sense, there's a reason it doesn't make sense, right? And this doesn't make sense on the surface.
You said you had a question.
Trump's leadership, I suppose, has always contained a component of staggering havoc, that he tore apart the playbook when campaigning to be the leader of the Republican Party. He tore up the playbook when electioneering against Hillary Clinton. And in his first term, domestically, there was this sense that we were dealing with a leader that's not confined by norms. Those norms themselves have to be undergirded by sets of moral authority that broadly have our consensus. To see Trump playing that out on a geopolitical scale, we're at the kind of nexus of the issue that's around which appear to web ideas such as colonialism, imperialism, spiritual power, is extraordinary. And I take your point, Lara, that to end this sort of ancient cycle of violence, what kind of epoch-shifting act and figure does it require? Is it the return of Christ? Is it a UFO to land at the site of the temples? Or is it the sort of extraordinary individual power of Donald Trump that's going to provide this fracture and warping in our understanding of reality? Like you, Laura, I can't actually imagine it. And like you, Neil, I sort of have this sense that, does Donald Trump mean that? Does Donald Trump just go out like... And what I really think it is, it's a sort of Donald Trump being Donald Trump, this person that uses tactics, rhetoric and behaviours that are way outside of what we've come to accept as normal political discourse. It's like guerrilla politics. He'll just say a thing, and now we're all having to deal with this new reality that's almost been spoken into being by him.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.